Welcome to Break the Loop, the place where shadows transform into personal power. Here we break the loop, shift timelines, and step into the highest version of ourselves. And today we begin something special. The very first video in a 15-part series on shadow work, quantum identity shifting, loop awareness, emotional transformation, and breaking the unconscious patterns that keep you stuck in repeating cycles. This series will take you step by step through understanding your shadow, recognizing your loops, shifting your identity, and consciously choosing a higher timeline. And today, in this first episode, we are starting with the foundation. Why you keep repeating the same patterns, and how to recognize the loop you are in so you can finally break it. Let's begin with something human, something almost everyone has experienced. Those moments where life feels like a copy-paste version of your past. You meet someone new, but emotionally, they feel exactly like the last person who hurt you. You start a new habit, you set a new goal, you feel motivated, yet somehow the same internal resistance rises and pulls you back. You promise yourself that next time I won't react like that, but then a trigger hits you and suddenly the same reaction takes over, as if it bypassed your conscious mind completely. You try to break away from certain emotions or behaviors, but life keeps offering you the same situations, the same conversations, the same dynamics. It's frustrating, it's confusing, and it can make you feel powerless, like life is against you or like change is impossible. But that is not the truth. You are not powerless, you are not broken, you are not failing, you are simply looping. A loop is an unconscious emotional pattern that repeats itself automatically. It is a survival memory stored in your nervous system, not in your logic, not in your conscious mind, but in your body and emotional wiring. A loop is the emotional blueprint of who you once had to be, repeating itself long after it is relevant. It is your identity acting from an old timeline. And this is why loops feel so uncontrollable. They happen before the conscious mind has time to intervene. They fire before you can decide. They activate before you can think clearly. A loop is an autopilot driven by old emotional information. It is your system saying, this is familiar, this is safe, this is how we do things, even when that familiarity is painful. Your brain does not prioritize happiness, it prioritizes survival, which means the brain prefers predictability over possibility. It prefers repetition over evolution. It prefers what is familiar over what is unknown. If a pattern kept you emotionally safe at some point in your life, your system assumes it must still be useful, even if it is outdated. This means the brain would rather repeat a familiar, painful pattern than risk something new. Not because the new is bad, but because the new is unfamiliar. This is why you attract similar situations, fall into the same behaviors, or relive emotional patterns from years ago. Your system is choosing what it already knows. That is the loop. The shadow is the version of you that formed during emotional overload, unmet needs, or early survival strategies. The shadow is not evil. It is not dark in the way we were taught. Your shadow is simply the parts of you that were pushed into the unconscious because they were too painful, too rejected, too unsupported, too misunderstood, or too overwhelming to process at the time. And because the shadow holds these emotional memories, it also holds the loops. Loops are the shadow's autopilot. Your shadow is the part of you that still believes the world is how it used to be. It thinks old pain is still relevant. It repeats old reactions because it never learned something new. So your shadow isn't sabotaging you. It's protecting you with outdated information. Here is where your true power begins. When you bring your shadow to consciousness, it loses its grip. When you see the unconscious pattern, the pattern breaks. The shadow transforms the moment it is seen. This is why we say here, the shadow becomes your power. The part of you that once kept you small can become the part that frees you. The behaviors that trapped you can become the insights that awaken you. The emotions you avoided can become the wisdom that guides you. The shadow is simply the unupdated version of you, waiting to evolve. And the moment you see it, you begin shifting into your higher timeline. Here is the moment that everything changes. The moment you recognize the pattern while you are inside it. That flash of clarity where you realize, I've been here before. It could be an emotional reaction, a familiar conflict, a behavior you promised yourself you'd stop, or a relationship dynamic that feels eerily familiar. That moment, that tiny flash of awareness, is the first break in the loop. Awareness interrupts the unconscious. Awareness dissolves the spell. Awareness creates space, and space creates choice. Without awareness, the loop is in control. With awareness, you are. There is one question that begins the breaking of every loop. What loop am I in right now? This question activates consciousness. It activates the observer. It activates your higher self. When you ask this question during a trigger, a pattern, an old emotional spiral, or a moment of déjà vu, you step outside the loop and into awareness. You become the watcher instead of the reactor. The question pulls you out of the old identity and into a new one. And identity is everything. Your identity chooses your behaviors create your timeline, and your timeline shapes your life. This is where the transformation becomes quantum. A loop is not just a habit, it is an identity pattern. When you break the loop, you are not just changing an action, you are changing who you are being. And when identity shifts, reality follows. This is why some people feel like they are living on a higher timeline after doing shadow work or breaking old patterns, because they are. You shift timelines when you shift identity. When you stop choosing from your shadow and start choosing from your higher self, your entire reality reconfigures around your new frequency. This is timeline work. This is quantum identity shift. This is the real alchemy behind breaking the loop. When you begin breaking your loops, your life subtly, and then dramatically, changes. You notice your triggers earlier. You respond differently. You choose differently. You stop falling for the same relationships. You stop abandoning yourself. You stop repeating emotional spirals. You become more grounded, more intentional, more powerful. You begin to feel like a new version of yourself, because you are. Breaking the loop is the beginning of identity evolution. It is the beginning of entering your higher timeline. It is the beginning of becoming who you were always meant to be before the shadow took over. This video is just the beginning. Over the next 15 episodes, we are going to explore everything in depth. Shadow work, identity alchemy, loop awareness, emotional mastery, nervous system healing, timeline shifting, quantum identity work, and the deeper layers of transformation that will help you break patterns for good. This series will build a complete framework to transform your life from the inside out. Each video builds on the last. Each concept strengthens the next. And together they will guide you through the process of breaking your loops and stepping into your higher self. This concludes the first video of our 15-part transformation series. Awareness breaks the loop, and your shadow becomes your power when you learn to face it with clarity and intention. Thank you for being here at the beginning of this journey. In the next video, we dive deeper into loops themselves, what they are, how they form, and how to recognize them instantly so you can stop repeating the same patterns. Until then, break the loop, shift the timeline, and become your higher self.